we give them that chance to, like, you buy a ticket to go to the theater to escape into another world. And I think that's what we get to do in luxury hotels as well.
Hello, my name is Renae Leith-Manos. Welcome to this podcast, Where To From Here, featuring conversations about luxury travel and how it's changing in every pocket of the globe. Hi guys, today we're going to Brisbane in Australia to talk to Rob Unson, who is very global, having worked all over Australia. He's from New York and he's also worked in Vietnam, in America and in Europe and the UK. He is a 5-star luxury hotel guru as far as I'm concerned, and he was at the helm of Brisbane's very lauded Calile Hotel for 4 years, and during that time the property was named number 12 in the world on the world's 50 best hotels list and received so many different awards and also worldwide recognition. And Rob has just overseen a $30 million renovation at Amora Brisbane, so he can tell us all about it. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you so much.
It's lovely to be chatting to you. Now, what attracted you to luxury hotels in the first place? Because you've basically been in luxury hotels your entire career.
I wouldn't say I was attracted. I was kind of challenged. I was dating somebody at the time and I had finished university and was kind of not really focusing on a career. And they kept saying to me, you need to have a direction, you need to have a focus. And I had a bunch of friends and stuff that were working in hotels around New York City. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll go and get a job at the Ritz-Carlton. And he was like, so you've gone from having no career to wanting to work at one of the best hotels in the world. He's like, you don't have any experience, you'll never get hired. And I guess for me, I like being told that I can't do something as being just to make it happen. Was lucky enough to get my foot in the door at the Ritz-Carlton New York. As an overnight receptionist.
You started doing shift work.
Fully doing shift work, 11 p.m. till 7 a.m. And New York, there's actually, the Ritz-Carlton New York was quite a unique property at that time. We had Broadway actresses that weren't from New York. So I'd be sitting there starting my shift 11 p.m. at night, and you've got all these people coming in from shows. Carol Burnett walked through the door and used to be like, "Hi, Rob."
Wow.
It was quite a surreal experience. I remember telling my mom and dad, who I used to beg to stay up and watch her TV show, I'm like, Carol Burnett knows my name.
Wow. And was that it? Were you hooked by that sort of, mystique, if you like, and the celebrity awareness that you had?
It was more about being able to step in and out of people's lives on a regular basis for some key moments. I've been lucky enough to orchestrate countless engagements, baby moons, births, family reunions. When I was at the Calile, we actually helped one of our really regular guests put together a funeral celebration for the passing of. I don't know, I felt lucky to be on the sidelines of some key moments in people's lives.
That's beautiful. And it was interesting, I was going through your bio and I saw that you studied theatre, because you're referencing theatre actresses, but I have always seen hotels a lot like theatre. I grew up as a child, and for me, just the whole theatrics of luxury hotels, the set, if you like, the lobbies with the ceilings and the glitz and the glamour, and then the whole behind the scenes, which is vastly different and very much like theatre, totally disconnected in a lot of ways. When people go behind the scenes of a hotel or of a theatre, they're sometimes horrified, saying, why does it look like this? Do you feel the same way, that there is a connection?
100%. I don't know if you're familiar with there's a stage play that was then made into a movie with Christopher Reeve called Noise
What's
is
it
Off.
called, sorry?
And it's Noise is Off. And it's 2 acts. And the first act is the onstage version of the show. And then act 2, they flip the whole set and you see everything going on behind the scenes to make it happen. The film version is really quite good. It's one of Christopher Reeve's final performances before his accident. Nicolette Sheridan from Knots Landing and a host of other shows was in it
Wow.
as well. And for me, really what hotels are, there's so much going on back of the
Yes.
house, making the magic come
No,
come
absolutely. And
alive
there's even
in front.
understudies. There's people who have to fill in because someone's unwell, and remembering
Oh,
lines, remembering people's names
absolutely.
and what they like and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. And even for the guests, I think we give them that chance to, like, you buy a ticket to go to the theater to escape
Yes.
into another world. And I think that we get to do in luxury hotels as well. We'll have guests that stay with us on a really regular basis, and that's wonderful, and they know what to expect. And then you've got other people that will save up for 12 months or 2 years to escape into something that they watch on TV or they
Yes.
dream of. And that's our responsibility and our job to give them that suspension of time and a step into a world that they don't necessarily get to
Yeah,
have
it's so
every day.
true, so true. And tell me about some of your overseas experience. I mean, you have worked everywhere. I am going next week to one of the hotels you worked at in Vietnam, in Hanoi, the Sofitel, I believe.
Vietnam was, I remember having lived in America, and then I moved there in 2010. So I'd been 14 years in Australia. So very Western traditional living. And I moved to Vietnam having only done interviews online. So I had never been to the property, had never been into the
Right.
country. And I remember I packed my life and flew from Melbourne and transferred through Saigon on my way to Hanoi. And just that stepping into
another world when we landed in Saigon, and I was transferring into the other airport, and I'm like getting onto a plane that was very different to the flights that we would normally fly between. And I had that moment but it was wonderful. I mean, I remember landing in Hanoi, and there was this whole team in this like beautiful traditional dress there to welcome me with these refreshing towels. And like we were talking about earlier, just creating that experience that you get to step into and be a part of. And be a part of. And Hanoi at that stage in 2010 still was quite heavily influenced by what they had come out of from a communist
Right.
influence. And so the country was still forming, but at the same time, there was still quite an influence from France. So you had these amazing, some of the best
And
pastries
wines.
I've ever
And
had
wines.
outside of. Yes, absolutely. And the people, the most giving, beautiful natured people, that would, it was a really, really incredible experience. And had I figured out a way to be able to transport back and forth between Melbourne and Hanoi really easily, so I could spend time with my husband on a more regular basis, I probably would have stayed there a lot longer
Yes.
than I did.
Yeah, no, I
But yeah,
understand. I
it's a
love
wonderful.
Southeast Asia. And that hotel, wasn't that the very place where the first movies were shown, the first Indochine movies were shown at the hotel, I think it was? And Charlie Chaplin used to stay there?
Yeah, so there's two Sofotels
I
in
beg your pardon.
Hanoi. So you're talking about the Metropole, which is one of
Right.
the legends, stunning property. And I was at Sofitel Hanoi on Westlake, along with there's like 5 or 6 Western hotels all around a lake. And while you're there, head over, and I recommend doing one of the
Okay.
swan boats. And there are these boats that you get into, and it's like almost like the pedal group bikes that you can do in Italy and South France and stuff. But you're on this lake, and there's hundreds of them. And it's quite an interesting thing. Like I remember doing it, but at the same time, young love, that was a real traditional first date kind of thing, because
people were able to have time on their
Right.
own without shouting their parents, and not to do anything untoward, but just to have that
Space.
moment with one another.
It's beautiful.
Romantic.
Absolutely.
And where else overseas, really made an impression on you that you worked?
I mean, starting out at the Ritz-Carlton New York kind of set
The bar very high. Yeah.
it really did. And I guess I didn't realize how fortunate I was until I started stepping out into other cities and
Yeah.
other properties. And it was, I mean, I remember the views of Central Park, and just some of the guests that we had or some of the events that we got to host at that property. It was a really magnificent
Wow.
experience. And I probably didn't touch on a similar thing maybe until when I was at
Sofitel at Werribee Park.
which was the old mansion hotel, the Churnside Mansion, in Victoria. It's part of the
I
Nastrian
don't know it.
Centre.
Wow.
Yes, it's now part of the Lansmore Group called the Mansion. But in 2005 to 2009, just before I went to Vietnam, it was under the Accor management, and it got rebranded as Sofitel. And I got brought in to actually I'd taken a sidestep out of hotels and did spa for a while. And so I got brought in to actually launch the spa into Australia via that property. And again, it's this unique, you drive down this uncovered path and you'd be coming across the open range zoo. So like on my way to work every morning, I'd see giraffes, I'd see rhinoceros. It was so surreal. And then driving into this historic house and again, creating some really amazing memories for people. We did so many weddings at that property. There was the polo fields and this historic house and the National Rose Gardens, cancer Easter egg hunt every year on that Grand Lawn. Elton John, when he did his tour in Leith-Manos, so 2008, 2009, where it was supposed to be his final tour, and he went around and he did all these intimate concerts in vineyards and gardens. And he did it at the gardens in front of the house. So we created these 2-day package experiences. If you had bought a ticket, that you could come and stay at the hotel. And myself kind of arrived 5:36 a.m. on that Friday morning, and we were basically in the grounds until the package finished 4 days later, because you couldn't get in or out because of all the traffic for the concerts and everything else. But again, creating these really unique experiences for guests.
Yeah, it's a bit of a signature of your career by the sounds of it. Unique experiences.
Yeah, and I guess led me into the great experience that I had for those 4 years here in Brisbane, of all places.
Talk me through that, because I know in other interviews you've called yourself a change maker. And I mean, that's evident at the Calile, because to be fair, you really put Brisbane on the map with what you did with that hotel, and certainly redefined Australian luxury hotels. So that's not a small thing to do, and it's not a small statement that I've made, but it's 100% correct. How did you do that?
Look, I'd love to say that it was me, but it really was this amazing collaboration. So you had this passionate family that were behind the development and set on property as the owners. And
hang on, who are the owners?
Harmoniously. But yeah, so it's the Maloof family. So you've got Calile Maloof Sr., and then his 3 kids are living and working in and around Brisbane, but their offices are on site at the hotel. And then working harmoniously with TFE as the management company. And then the precinct itself, you've got some great restaurateurs and bar owners, and then some of the best.
I was about to say, even as a retail precinct with that big Mecca store and the fashion, as you know, as a woman, you just want to be there.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it was bringing all those people together, and working to create, again, this really unique experience. And people would often come with either massive expectations because of everything that
Right.
they'd read or seen in the press. And I think what I loved was the restaurants,
Yes.
and they got all of that. But what we were able to do is really deliver this amazing experience, that personal touch, the pulling up onto the drive and every single car door gets touched and opened and every single guest gets welcomed, and it goes from there into the lobby where you've got staff attending to every and any need that you might have. And so 175 rooms, you quite regularly have 250, 300 people
It's a
moving
lot.
through that property just in hotel guests, not to mention the restaurants or the beautiful function rooms where I think in 2021 we did 130 weddings in that one calendar year, coming out of COVID when there's people. Thursday was the new Saturday for weddings in Brisbane.
Is that because it was much cheaper?
No, it was just because
we had a rule at the Calile where there's only one Calile bride a day.
So if somebody was booked on a Friday or a Saturday, there was no other options. You couldn't. A lot of other venues would do a rooftop ballroom. Like they've got different spaces that they can do stuff in. The commitment was that as a Calile bride, you were the only one. So it's just pushed you on to other days. So it was like Friday, Saturday, Sunday were staples.
Wow.
So then it was, can we do something on a Thursday?
How fantastic. And what do you think is the secret to a luxury hotel succeeding in Australia? A lot of people on this show come on and talk about, the cost of staff, particularly relative to somewhere like Southeast Asia. But I mean, I'm hearing you talk about the Calile and even the exclusivity you created for brides. It sort of created demand in some of the ways that you structured it. But what do you think is the secret?
Yeah, I think you can have a beautiful building and you can have the finest of robes and linen counts and beautiful fresh flowers everywhere. But I think the human element is what really makes the difference here in Australia. And I think that, it sounds weird coming from me, the American, I think that's innately what Australia is. It is that very my host. It's that they want people to be welcomed and feel at home. I remember the first discussion or chat that I had with the owners at the Calile, where it was me walking into, and I was immediately made to feel at ease. And felt like I was walking into their home per se. It was, can I get you the water? Is the temperature all right? It was that all those little elements on a one-on-one exchange, we then replicate it for a guest experience.
Beautiful.
So is the room temperature all right for you? And if it isn't, this is how you can amend it, or this is what we can do. Do you know what to eat in one of these restaurants? Where would you like to eat? Would you like to eat on the roof? Can we organize something with the rooftop garden? Oh, you don't want to go in the hilltop car. Have you seen that we've got electric bikes?
Brilliant.
It's like making sure that people had options and got to curate their experience. And we just help facilitate it.
How fantastic. And tell me about Amora then. That's the hotel that you're now running in Brisbane that's just had the $30 million renovation. So what have you got for guests there?
And I've approached it, I guess, emotionally. When I got to the Calile, it was, what do we have? What do we need? And how do we get there? And I'm kind of in that same place here at the moment. So we've worked really hard on building and curating the team. So 7-8 months in, the leadership team that's here now have all probably got less than 12 months on property, but have come from a full of properties. So we've got somebody that's come out of the W, we've got somebody that's come out of Ritz-Carlton, we've got somebody that's worked fine dining in Southeast Asia. We've got somebody that used to work in the Middle East attending to royalty over there. So just bringing the people in that start to understand where we want to go. And then the next 12 months is really about, exploring where we can go. But again, it's not me going, this is what we're going to do. It's me sitting down with these people that we've brought into the team to figure out, this is where the owner would like to see us go. How do we help get there with what we've got here? So as you said, they spent 30 million, bought a building that's got really great bones, stripped it back to concrete, and really invested into the quality of the finishings that we've got here. And now we're trying to do that same thing with the people. So we've brought in some new people that are working really closely. We've got 2 or 3 people that have been here through the transition. So they were here with the previous management company. They worked through quarantine. They worked through the renovation. And it's great to have that perspective of what they've tried or trialed in the past, but are quite open to exploring, to giving something a go a second time, and working, again, collaboratively. Our owners are, again, a wonderful family out of Thailand.
Fantastic.
That are really passionate about hospitality and have a vision to really grow their brand, both here and in Southeast Asia.
Fantastic. And how does Brisbane fit into the Australian luxury scene? Because, you've been there a while now.
It's interesting. When I moved to Brisbane, I think I'd been here once prior to 2019 when I moved up, and it was back in 2001, 2002. And it wasn't what it is now. And I barely remember. I remember I came up, I was up for a sales call. I stayed at what's now the Sofitel Hotel. It was the Sheraton then, and met with a couple of travel companies, and then did what most people did, drove up to Noosa, spent a few days in Noosa. So really used Brisbane as a gateway into those other places. And I think the big change is it's no longer viewed as that gateway. It's its own destination. You've got, 2023, 2024 top restaurants for Australia named in Brisbane. And as you mentioned, the Calile was named number 12 in 2023 for 50 best. And again, number 1 in Oceania for the 2024 list. And 25 on that list, where a lot of hotels, I think out of that top 50 from 2023, I was speaking with the owner recently, and I think she said somewhere between 15 and 20 hotels dropped off that list. So it's a real credit to them and the team to retain that positioning.
100%. And tell me, when you travel, where do you like to go, and is it in luxury?
Sometimes it is. So if I look back, the last big trip I did was 2022, coming out of not a lot of travel the years before with the pandemic. And so I was headed back to the States to see family, and then we had a friend's birthday in Greece. So we were traveling for 6 weeks all up. And 6 weeks staying in luxury hotels just is really an option. But I was lucky enough to start that at the Baccarat Hotel in New York.
Wow. We interviewed, we had the former GM on the show, Andrew, an Australian. He was the opening, he's now in Thailand, in Phuket, at Rosewood.
Yeah, and so that's the group that's about to open number 1 Melbourne.
How exciting. There's money coming into the industry in Australia.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's where, when you're asking, why is Brisbane? I think each capital city is kind of experiencing or trying out that luxury property. Sydney, it might be, you've got Capella that are set up down there, which is giving Park Hyatt
Which
a
is
run
about
for its
time, to be
money.
fair. I mean, Park Hyatt's been around a lot of years.
And Melbourne's got Ritz-Carlton re-entering the Australian market for the
Yes.
first time in decades. And number one will open
Yes.
next year. Yeah, and I think, Calile being what it is here in Brisbane, and then you've got the development at Queen's
Yes.
Wharf, and there's some flagship properties that will go into that.
It's very
So I
exciting.
think is coming into its version of that luxury boom.
No, it's exciting. And look, I'd love to talk to you more. You're so entertaining. It's wonderful for me to hear what's been going on in Australia. I was living in Southeast Asia until the end of last year, so I'm just finding my feet back in the Australian luxury hotel world. It's been wonderful talking with you. And as I said earlier, I have not been to the Calile, and I certainly haven't been to your beautiful hotel. So I'm due to come up to Brisbane. I'd love to meet you in person. I'd love to have a look at Amora and this incredible renovation. And to be honest, I'd love to be introduced to the luxury and the restaurants and the lifestyle in Brisbane, because it just sounds amazing now.
Absolutely. Well, reach out. I'd love to facilitate that for you and help create that luxury experience for you here in Brisbane that I've done for so many others.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your time. Congratulations again on your recent wedding, and have a beautiful Christmas together.
Thank you so much, Renae.
Thanks, Rob. See you in Brisbane.
All right. See you then.
Bye for now.